Okay, welcome to this Veeam user group session, like starter kit, where I've made a presentation, a video, etc. And this you can use at your own user group. You can customize it, you can shorten it, you can extend it, but it's just a starter. You know, if you want to do more with it, you can, but the thought is this will just be a good starting kit for you. So I'm Rick Vanover. If you got any questions, just reach out. So it's going to be about simplifying the deployment of the Veeam hardened repository. And when I say Veeam hardened repository, I'm just going to call it the VHR. It just kind of rolls off the tongue, Veeam hardened repository. So that's first introduced in V11, and it's been updated twice with 11a and V12. Great way to have immutable backups at no additional Veeam cost on Linux. So the files written on Linux have immutable attributes. Works with the XFS block cloning, which is a spaceless full backup technique where synthetic full backups don't require additional space because the blocks that already exist are cloned. It's not deduplication, but it prevents duplication. Whew, okay, no dupe, yeah. And then it was updated twice, and it's great with use of the scale-out backup repository for double play immutability. We'll show you a diagram of that here in a bit. There were some challenges, though. Not everyone can throw down, the skill needed for Linux. And disk partitioning, right? That's an area that, might have been something people set up a number of times to get it right, or at least the way they wanted it. And then hardening the OS is not for the faint of heart. In fact, we documented what it takes for the disastig standard, and that's some scary stuff. I mean, it's just a lot of work. So we thought, what can we do to give immutable hardened repositories with reduced amount of configuration steps and ongoing ease of use, which kind of matches some of the chat we had from tech support. So with the VHR in market, the top three kind of things that they would get as questions was how to set up Linux, right? I love the idea, but I don't know Linux. Upgrading was tricky because if the single-use credentials, some people thought, well, it was single use. I didn't save it. Kind of don't blame them by the definition, but it got in the way of some upgrades. But V12 simplifies that. And then you could turn off the immutability box. Now V12 we don't. So we kind of went into this question of what can we do to make this easier to get started and use ongoing. So V12 hits a lot of this really well, and we have this new installable ISO. It's important to note you don't need the installable ISO. So you could ask yourself, do you want to automate the installation and automate the hardening and use Ubuntu and have basically none of the configuration options to worry about? Then yes, the installable ISO is a candidate for you. So V12 makes this easier with the installable ISO. It breaks it down to 3 questions: IP, username, password. I guess it's actually 4 with the host name. And it does automate the hardening, and I want to emphasize this. Be careful, because this will forever on make that system a VHR. And just to clarify, the root system sudo only can do reboot and update afterwards. And then ongoing use easier. The single-use credential on upgrades, you won't need to provide the credentials again. The box for immutability won't be there to turn on or off. And the automated hardening for disastig, because doing those steps step by step is craziness. I shouldn't say craziness, it's just a lot of work. So a couple of FAQ on the hardened repo with this razzle-dazzle splash screen. Number 1, check the requirements. There's not many, but every single one of them need to be there. And then one FAQ is, what about non-Ubuntu? Right now, it's only Ubuntu HWE, but if you want a different distro, please let us know in the chat, and we'll consider adding it. But if you do need a different distro, you would have to do the by hand installation, so you're not a candidate for the ISO. Next question, how is this supported? Well, the ISO itself is only supported in the Community Hub, and that is not support. That's not Veeam technical support. But once you get it deployed and have a Veeam repo inventoried in a Veeam BNR, that is supported, okay? Now, I can tell you, we've had discussions, self-help, we've had changes to the ISO made, so we do actually make progress in the Community Hub here, but just note, this is loosely equivalent to like a VMware fling. And then the next question, what if I don't want the hardening applied? Well, if you don't want disastig hardening, you're not a candidate for the installable ISO. So think about that in that regard. Trying to think about what's next. We need some feedback. There's a lot of opportunity here. Coming soon, we're going to move it over to a website on Veeam.com, sorting some stuff out with the web team. I don't think forever it'll be on OneDrive, but additionally, in the future, we might be looking at other distros, but please let us know. So let's see, how could you use the VHR? Now, this is just a sample. Again, as a user group leader, you can maybe showcase some of your own ideas, but if I just meet somebody for the first time, I would recommend a scale-out backup repository with one or more performance tier VHRs, an offsite copy, and an immutable or service provider for that matter, which I'll show that up here in a second. And basically, you have this end-to-end immutability where this first copy is on premises, the second copy is offsite. And then you could have a third copy with a service provider or on tape, and you can have double or triple play immutability. Really, really resilient. Be 32120, or 32130. I guess it would be 42130. Crazy, crazy stuff, but super resilient. And what I really like is that this is a completely different immutability control plane than that. And when you have copy mode enabled with sober, the contents are in sync. So you have two different copies of immutable backups, two different control planes of immutability, and they're both fully self-describing and fully recoverable. So it's like, by the math, this is a super resilient way to do it. Now you could also have one VHR at one site on one's own network, and then at another site on your own network you could have a second. So you could draw this up even without object storage. There's so many ways you can do it. So also, I made a video. Okay, so this video walks through the actual run of the installable ISO. And so basically, I'll just fast forward here for a bit. And there's audio on this, so you can listen to that. But like, I go through the resources, I go through checking the hashes, I go through, watching the installation, and I go through configuring in BNR, blah, blah, blah. So it's all in there, but that has its own audio, so be sure to check that out. A couple of resources for more. First of all, this is the Community Hub thread that matters, that will help innovate the releases, and the post-publish updates will tell you when there's been changes to the installable ISO. That'll all be done there. And play with it. Get in the lab. Try to break it. Try to hack it. Let us know. Or if it's something you find interesting, let me know privately, and I'll get it to the PMs. And it's reasonable to expect that at VeeamON 2024, we'll have kind of a cool updated version here. All right, short and sweet. Enablement kit for the VHR. Again, this is Rick Vanover. Let me know if you have any questions on the material. Cheers.